Hey Tom, how are you today?
Great, Jeff. How are you?
I'm doing great. I want to talk with you today about LinkedIn groups. I know that you and your agency have a lot of experience setting up LinkedIn groups, and I'd love to talk about some best practices, some good strategies for B2B companies who are looking at LinkedIn groups as a means for social media lead generation. So, where does someone start? What are some of the first things that you have to think about?
Well, the first step, the first rule, in my opinion, is always start with the product or service in mind that you want to sell. It's often overlooked, but if you're going to build a LinkedIn group as a B2B organization, build it to generate revenue. That's the ultimate outcome, is to grow market share. So there's no better way to direct yourself and focus your efforts by starting with which product or service or product category or service category do we want to sell. That will force you to design a group the right way from top down.
Well, and I guess the next thing that you need to think about really is who your target audience is. How do you approach the idea of the buyer? Who should be in that group?
That's right. The people that will buy this product or service, the most likely ones, are the audience you should be inviting to your group, and no one else really. If you determine the right product or service that you want to sell, then remember it is those who are most interested in that product or service and the solutions that it brings that are most likely to join and participate in this community.
So you said start by thinking about the product or service that you're going to sell. Does that mean that this group is organized around selling or pitching the product, or how do you work that in so it feels a little more natural, a little more organic?
Yeah, good question. So we never sell directly, and we shouldn't. This is social selling, which is about leading with insights, leading with value. So the key is not the product or service, but the solution that it offers your buyers. What are they desperate for to solve their professional issues? What can your product or service solve? You should be naming your group around the solution, around the macro trend, around the core attributes that your buyers would instinctively understand represents a forum that can solve their professional needs.
LinkedIn has a couple different kinds of groups. They have open groups, they have closed groups, and when you're starting with this group trying to target this specific audience, would you recommend starting with a closed group so you can keep things private, or do you really want it to be open so anybody can see it?
Well, both have key value. The first, the closed group, is useful when you're starting out and you're trying to learn group management and building a group, and you don't want to be a fishbowl where everyone can see what you're doing. There might be a feeling of exclusivity that you want to cultivate, so a closed group works well for that. But closed groups also don't breathe into search engines, basically. They're not visible, they're closed off. So if eventually you want to open up your group to be indexed by search engines and be able to share the content of the group to Twitter and LinkedIn, then an open group makes sense. Although, keep in mind, you can still have an open group, but limit members into the group and also moderate comments or prevent comments from being made by those who are not part of the group.
One of the things that people don't do very often when they create groups is understand that they're actually building a community, and in fact build in a community management function, and in fact assign people from your organization, or if you're of this nature, be a community manager to the group. How important is that to for a thriving and growing group?
Well, I'm sure you've thrown lots of dinner parties yourself, Jeff. You need to be a great host. You need to mingle with guests. You need to prompt them. You need to put the right people in place to do that. So you don't put group managers in place who are not minglers or people who don't care about their dinner guests or party guests. You need people who demonstrate in offline, real life, the kind of behaviors that are conducive and helpful to actually prompting members and engaging them and getting them to participate.
So you mentioned earlier the idea of inviting people. Can I know you have some best practices of how you fill out a group. Can you describe that? And I think there's a food analogy coming. So I'm getting a little hungry, and so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, we discussed the cake analogy. So we're building three layers of the cake. The first layer is your own staff. So get 5 or 10 of your own staff to join the group first, to basically fill out the group and set it up. The second layer, though, is quite important. You don't want to invite hard prospects and clients you want to sell more to into a group that's empty or barren or just made up of your own staff. So ideally, invite your closest business partners and closest clients and tell them it's a new group and you need their help and you want them to join because it's a beta group. And they will get that. They will understand and appreciate that. Once you've built that second layer and start distributing some content into the group and getting some initial comments going with the second layer of close business partners and clients, then you should start inviting your prospects and other clients, because then they're going to join a party that's already happening rather than one that seems weak and barren and full of crickets in the background.
And not just a party, but a party with a 3-layer cake, which sounds
That's
pretty awesome.
that's right. A
So
3-layer cake.
so now we have everything set up. We're targeting the right people. We've gotten some people there. We have a community manager. We understand our role as the group owner, that we have to be involved. And then it comes time for content. So
Yeah.
how do you approach what do you say in the group? What do you put forth to people so they start feeling like they're part of a community and a community idea?
So if you and I are sitting having beers and there's others around us, what do? We talk, we share thoughts, insights. We never sell. We never self-promote, or at least not in a way that is overt and makes us seem isolated. So it's all about content that everyone feels resonates with them, topical. So you can source third-party content that's really relevant to the group's name, the theme, and share it into the group. Or you can even post conversation starters. We call them at my agency candy topics. Really nice, simple topics. There's no article, there's no video there. It's just a topic that you post in and ask people, what are your thoughts? Have you come across this before? And watch as an avalanche of discussion takes place. And this is what you need. That's content. For me, content is not the stuff that you spend $100,000 producing. Content is literally even this, just me talking to you and engaging you. This is what we need to create a functioning, healthy group.
And so, what are some of your best practices of engaging the group further? So for instance, besides posting content, do you actually need to prompt people to comment on it, both within the group and outside of the group?
You do. At my agency, we'll approach someone offline and email them a link to a topic and say to that person, Nick, love that you're part of our group. We realize your background is in this area and thought that you'd find this topic particularly relevant. We'd love to hear your comment. In some cases where we have more confidence in relationship with members, we'll SMS them on a personal one-to-one basis. Not often, but we will find different channels that we're comfortable with, where we know that the member will not be offended or feel put out, but instead are logical, contextual channels for us. And we will approach them and we will engage them just as a party host would, just as any manager of any forum, intimate forum, would do. We do the same on a social network. There's no difference, Jeff. I think we're once removed from real life. A LinkedIn group is one step removed from a real life intimate group. I don't see any difference.
So what about the idea of lead generation? When how do you take this great community that you've built and really take it along to another level and think about how lead generation happens as a result of building that great community in a group?
It's a two-gear lead generation process. So you need to think outbound lead generation, inbound lead generation, just like in real life. So inbound comes by sharing content that links back to your website, links back to a landing page, which converts the person who clicked through into an email registration that can then feed into your marketing automation program, lead nurturing program. Or members of the group approach your profile because you've participated with them so many times, they're intrigued by you, and they seek you out and send you a message thanking you for the participation and maybe even proposing a meeting. So inbound lead gen is quite key. But you also have outbound, but you have to coordinate this. You can't just let any one of your staff who's on the group management committee basically reach out and ask for a meeting. There has to be coordination between sales and marketing, weekly or fortnightly, and then look at the group members. Who do you think, based on relationship scoring or even marketing automation scoring, is ready for us to approach in an outbound manner and ask for a meeting? So groups must have a two-year lead generation strategy in place and the right process and controls for achieving those results. And tracking as well, Jeff, of course.
Of course. And just by way of wrapping up, you mentioned marketing, you mentioned sales. How does this kind of community group connect to marketing and sales? Who's in charge? Who benefits from it? How does it I guess nurture that relationship between the two of them?
Look, we've spoken in the past, and I've always believed that social selling is marketing-led, sales-fed. I will always believe that based on the work we do, that marketing needs to take ownership or governance or significant influence of social selling for social selling to be a perfect program. I can't see marketing not being involved. And in a group, which is actually an asset, a hard asset, I see it as being a marketing-led program where marketing owns the group. One of the key stakeholders from marketing or a key executive, marketing nurtures the group, and the sales organization benefits from that by collaborating with marketing and participating, because ultimately it is they who will be meeting group members. So that's the play I see here. Marketing needs to lead it, fund it, rationalize it, and sales needs to collaborate and then act as the key go-to-market channel for marketing.
Well, that's great, Tom. Thanks so much for sharing your best practices and strategies for starting and managing a LinkedIn group for B2B lead generation.
Thank you, Jeff. My pleasure.